Hello.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
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 Okay, so we are also live on YouTube and Facebook, so I think we can start officially this activity. Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here and welcome. I will be very brief. I'll just say welcome to Nebula, Doc Lisboa, and to this second edition of the State of the Art, an activity we started last year in partnership with Creative Europe Media Desk Portugal. So for this reason, I would like to thank Susana Costa Pereira, head of the Creative Europe Media Desk Portugal, and all the media desks involved. Ainhoa Gonzalez Sanchez from Media Desk Euskadi, Esther Kraus from the Austrian Media Desk, and Silvia Sandrone from the Italian Turin Desk. And a special thank, of course, goes to the invited speakers, Alessandro Groplero from Fondo Audiovisivo Friuli Venezia Giulia, Pedro Borges from the Portuguese Midas Films, Ruben Corral, programming coordinator at Zinebi Festival, and Salma Abdallah from Austrian Outlook Film Sales. So I will leave the floor to our moderators, Susana Costa Pereira and Miguel Ribeiro, co-director of Doc Lisboa. They will introduce you to the activity and will moderate the conversation. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Glenda. I am very happy to welcome you all, our dear participants, and as well as everyone that joined this online activity. The State of the Art is a program that we started last year with as an encounter with the Media Desk Portugal and the great kindness and help of Susana Costa Pereira. This is a project in which we aim at every year discuss something that by joining different partners in Europe and actors of a main issue that we feel like deserves our collective attention and discussion, but not in a strict European level. And today we can see that we have participants from all over the world, and that's very revigorating and really will for sure enhance the discussion that could be had here otherwise. So last year we had a very long day of discussions around how film can be used for school purposes, educational purposes, and what encounters can be made possible through film and education. And this year we are about to start a reflection of what are the challenges now, but more than anything, what are the possible cooperations between different platforms and different institutions and activities that can foster a wider circulation of films. So we have a very diverse panel and also a very diverse set of participants. So thank you all for joining, and I will pass the word to Susana. Thank you so much.
So, hello everyone, good afternoon. The Creative Europe Media Desks from Austria, Italy, and the Basque Country in Spain welcome you and thank you so much for joining us today. I'm Susana Costa Pereira from the Creative Europe Media Desk in Portugal, as Miguel said, and Glenda will be co-moderating this session. Just a few words to frame our conference and to frame the tone of our conference. Why did we as desks decided to organize such a conference? Well, as you know, Creative Europe Media acts upon the entire value chain of the audiovisual sector, from training to exhibition, I think through development, production, access to markets, film education, and so on. Nevertheless, these objectives tackle two priorities of the program, which is increasing circulation and increasing and building audiences. And these are the underlying objectives of the entire Creative Europe program. Well, we as desks have a role to help you through this myriad of possibilities and of challenges, of course, by helping you preparing your applications, but also sharing knowledge and fostering future collaborations. And it was in this spirit that my colleagues and myself decided to organize this conference focusing on the documentary marketplace, connecting the dots between the different players with different roles to play, with different business objectives and different missions, demonstrating in all these activities actually intertwine into increasing audiences and circulation of audiovisual works. So my colleagues will, in a minute, literally present our speakers, and we will continue our conference. But I would first like to thank, of course, also our guest speakers for joining us, of course, Doc Lisboa for having us and for offering us again the Nebula state-of-the-art slot. The entire team of Doc Lisboa for helping us promote and put together this, this event, and in particular to our wonderful Glenda Balucani for all her support and expertise. Thank you so much, Glenda. I would now like to give the floor to my colleague Silvia Sandroni from the Italy Creative Europe Media Desk in Torino. Silvia?
Hi, hello. Hello, everyone. A warm welcome also from Creative Europe Desk Italy and from its media offices, which are based in Rome, Turin, and Bari. Our desk is hosted by Istituto Luce Cinecittà, who plays an important role also in the distribution and circulation of documentaries. Well, we are very happy to be partner of this event, and we are happy to introduce you one of the media success stories in Italy when it comes to co-production forum, which is Venice Meets West. Thank you, Alessandro, for being with us today, for accepting our invitation. Alessandro Gloprolo is the head of international relations of this event of Venice Meets West, which has been supported by media since 8 years now, if I'm not wrong. And it takes place in January in Trieste in the framework of Trieste Film Festival that this year got the media grant too. So we are also very happy about that. And just to give you a very short overview of Venice Meets West, I like the way they describe themselves then when they say that this event is like a natural bridge between East and Western Europe, because in fact, I think that one of the added values of this event is that you can meet many people of different sectors of the industry and establish connections among these different areas. Both for your project, but also for your professional career. Well, last but not least, this event, which is organized by the Regional Film Fund in Friuli, Venezia Giulia, benefit also of a long list of remarkable partners in the European industry, such as EAVE and Eurimage, just to mention only two of them. And well, I think my 1 minute presentation is over. So I give the floor to my colleague, Ainhoa. And thank you to all the participants. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. First of all, I want to thank Doc Lisboa for giving us the opportunity to organize this joint activity with my colleagues from media offices from Portugal, Austria, and Torino. Thanks to all the speakers for sharing with us your experience, sorry. And finally, I want to thank Rubén Corral, the programming director from CINEBI, the International Festival of Documentary and Short Film Festival from Bilbao, who is with us today. CINEBI is the only Class A international festival in Spain that has been acknowledged by the FIAP under documentary and short film category since 1974. And we are very proud of it, of course. And it will be held in November. And in the middle of November, we hope that everything goes okay. Let's see. And we hope that this conference is interesting for all of you. And obrigada. And I give the floor to my colleague Esther.
Thank you, Anoa. Thank you. Hello, my name is Esther Kraus. I run the Creative Europe Media Desk in Austria. I'm based in the Austrian Film Institute. It's also my pleasure to welcome everybody. Thank you very much for putting it all together, Susanna. Thank you, Glenda. Thank you, Miguel, for the invitation. It's my first time at Doc Lisboa. I wish I could be there in person, but I hope for the next time. It is my big pleasure to introduce you to Salma Abdallah from the world sales company Outlook, based in Vienna. I'm thrilled that she accepted to take part. Outlook has established itself as one of the leading world sales agents. They handle documentaries, hybrids, and series. And they have titles in their portfolio like Of Fathers and Sons, which is Academy nominated, then The Painter and the Thief, A Casa, My Home, and For Sama, also flooded with awards. I'm very much looking forward to hear her insight and her perspective. Thank you, Salma, for being with us. And I hope we have a lot of great things to hear. Thank you.
So, and now it is my pleasure to present Pedro Borges. Pedro Borges is a producer, distributor, exhibitor, one of the most prominent distributors in Portugal. In 2006, Pedro opened a art house cinema called Cinema Ideal, which is really making a difference in Portugal and in Lisbon, but in the entire country. Pedro has created Midas films in 2006, and aside from producing, he also, of course, exhibits. It was in 2014, I'm sorry, that he opened and renovated the Cinema Ideal in the heart of Lisbon. So I hope, I think we have this a very interesting set of speakers, and let's start with the conference, and I would give the floor to Alessandro, please.
Well, thank you, Susanna. Thank you, Doc Lisboa, for inviting me for this very, very interesting panel. When Silvia contacted me to ask me to be part of this panel, I was a bit like hesitating because considering the focus of the of this webinar, I thought, okay, I work for a film fund. I'm the head of a co-production market. I'm not that involved in that final part of the, let's say, of the film, the value chain. So what can I say? But then I thought, okay, maybe there is room for adding something that could be relevant, and maybe there is room really to also to consider some of the activities and plans that we are basically planning for the future, both as a fund, as a co-production market, that could be somehow relevant for the discussion. So maybe I can start sharing my screening so that I have a very, very simple presentation to share with you. And I can start with that. So basically, yes, present and future times for funds and markets. Well, I don't want to be so pretentious to give an answer for the present and future times for all funds and all markets. I'm just considering what we are doing here in our regional fund and in our production market that could be somehow inspiring for the future activities on a larger scale. As Silvia was mentioning before, my main hat has been is working for the regional film fund of the Friuli Venezia Giulia, which is a regional fund based in the northeast of Italy. And since the very beginning, we somehow try to be very, very similar to what Susanna was mentioning before, explaining what Creative Europe does. So basically, we started from the very beginning to have a so-called complementary approach. Complementary, what it meant when we started our activity. We started our activity in 2007, and of course, the world was different. So basically, my presentation will be a sort of like overview of how we were, how we are, basically, and how we imagine to be in the future. So basically, in 2007, our complementary approach was basically complementary to what? Complementary, of course, to the existing funding opportunities. So basically, we could map very well what was the landscape around us, and especially what were the funding opportunities such as media. So when we created our structure, we were really considering this. We were complementary to the existing training and market opportunities, so that basically, okay, where we can play here a role, how we can collaborate with those players already existing. And last but not least, what were the existing needs of the industry on a local level and on an international level? So basically, we start with this approach. And at the beginning, the combination of different actions that we put in place, I would say I like to call it horizontal. We had an horizontal approach, which means we were having different actions, we were working on different actions in the same stage of production. And I will be like a little bit more clear on this. Let's say that our fund was, since the very beginning, working very hard on what we can call the funding actions, which is basically the financial support that we can give to producers and to projects, focusing on training, development, and production. But we had a lot of so-called, that I like to call surrounding actions. So it's everything that takes place near on the, let's say, on the surrounding, but has an amazing impact as well as the financial support can have. And in this overview, we focus on three main different actions. One is called training, and it's called Ties That Bind, which is a workshop that we do together with EADE. The other one is When East Meets West, which is the co-production market taking place in Trieste, and it's really like with the clear intention of offering access to market. And the other one, it's a co-development initiative that we started with Slovenia and Croatia and Serbia in 2015, and it's called REACT, and it's like a co-development initiative that is a combination as well of training and funding. So it's a combination of training opportunities and the supranational funding. I will focus in the rest of the presentation on When East Meets West as an example of what and how co-production markets can slightly change in the coming years, and on REACT, like just to see how a collaboration between regional and national funds on an international scale might also start to consider more and more the importance of distribution. When East Meets West. So basically, When East Meets West, we started in 2011, and last January, we celebrated our 10th anniversary edition. Apparently, we were some of the few last events that could take place on site. I'm not really sure what will happen next January, so we will see, but we're still confident that we will be able to do at least part of the program on site. But let's talk about the first 10 years of When East Meets West. Here, compared to what I described before for our fund, we decided to have a combination of different vertical actions. Vertical actions, why? Because before, horizontal was different actions in the same stage of production, which means more development. Now it's like we decided to have different actions in different stages, but with the same targeting the same projects. So the idea was really to try from the beginning to follow projects from development till really the last moment of the promotion. And what we did, we can see here a series of actions and keywords. Basically, I'm telling this just to prove also how co-production markets already thought about the importance of distribution and how in this development phase and in the other actions that we were implementing, distribution was always in our mind. The co-production forum, of course, it's a co-production forum like many other markets that is trying to connect projects in development with possible international decision makers. So the key word here is matchmaking. And of course, the higher the quality was, the higher chances were to find potential partners already for distribution. But especially here, we try to put in place a very, very detailed matchmaking session, like every year a spotlight country in order to connect the projects with the countries in focus. We had different actions, more, let's say, shifting towards post-production. So Last of Trieste is a work in progress section for documentaries. And it's a normal work in progress where we screen our documentaries to potential partners like sales, festival programmers, commissioning editors. We realized quite soon that we wanted to offer something more. And that's why we created an event called First Cut Lab. And it's an event where films that are in the editing phase, they go through a lab. We realized that there are so many script labs, there are so many programs for developing the scripts, but then it's like the films are completely abandoned. And so we thought, okay, let's start with creating a lab for films that can be somehow advised by experts, international experts. And this was the very first action connected to a sort of like clear distribution in mind. So, okay, let's really help them to fine-tune the films in order to be able to expose them to the international market. Last January, we implemented this and we added First Cut Plus, which is another program which is like for films that are completely edited, and it's really completely focusing on the marketing strategy for this film. So it's like it's an action that aim at boosting the marketability and the competitiveness of the selected films. But Winnie Smith-West also in the past was trying to stimulate and scout, so basically stimulating access to new, for example, formats. Called Open is a lab for producers who are aspiring to shift to TV series content. And also we were focusing on scouting new talent. So basically it was a big platform where we were trying to satisfy many different needs. But let's see how Winnie Smith-West 2021 might look like, and we don't know whether we will keep this idea of the market also for the future. So we don't want to, even if we will be able to do something on site, we know for sure that it's going to be a reduced version, but we don't want to give the idea to our selected projects and our participants that is going to be a downgrading edition. On the contrary, we are working hard to offer something more, and this is why we are creating a combination of different, I would say, circular actions. And what I mean is that now we will still focus as before on different stages with different actions in different stages, but what we will try to do is to bring together opposite sides of the value chain to work together already in a co-production market. So basically, the actions and the keywords for next January will be curation and inspiration. Curation, what we will love to create is that we are perfectly aware that online means a lot of opportunity, new opportunities that we didn't know to have. For example, I also never attended Doc Lisboa, and here I am for the first time. But it also means that, of course, everybody is so busy in their ordinary work life, and it's so difficult to commit everybody to an online event, to have many meetings. Like it's a bit different. So what we wanted to have is to create for sure a sort of like tailor-made matchmaking. And we created this. We will create a network of business angels for each selected projects, where we will focus on different topics in order really to help the projects to develop at best their co-production strategy, the financing strategy, and their distribution strategy. So they will get a business angel from the co-production countries they want to work with. And this business angel will be the one recommending 3 or 4 producers from that country, in order that we know that those producers are really suitable for that project, and it will be our duty to connect them with the selected projects. But the business angels will be also sales agents, and for the first time, exhibitors. The idea is to try to bring together projects in development that for the first time, they will have the chance in our market to meet exhibitors from the countries they plan to distribute and release the film, in order to have a very first sense of how the film could be perceived by the audience of that country. And we really want to bring together these opposite sides of the value chain, in order really to try already to think about the audience concretely. So we are really trying to be even more a bridge. The second thing is about inspiration, and we will love this year, and this is really perfectly in line of what we are doing now here. We would love to have a think tank about distribution. It was already our plan in the past, because we know very well that distribution had and has some major problem, and could somehow tackle by our, let's say, the decision makers attending Venice Meets West. Even now, it's more urgent and it's needed for the film industry. So we will bring together the actors of this part of the value chain. We will bring together international, from the sales agents, distributors, exhibitors, festivals, VOD platforms, in order to start thinking not only how to survive this pandemic, but it's really how do we see the distribution model in 5-10 years. So it's like we really want to try to see how the world could be in the future. Coming back, and I'm trying to get a little bit faster because I have a few minutes left. REACT is this regional audiovisual cooperation and training, and it's a co-development initiative that we started in 2015. The first 5 years we're focusing exactly as our fund on horizontal actions, and the keywords were organic co-development, networking and matchmaking, and co-development funding. What we were trying to do was to bring together producers and filmmakers from the 4 countries in a very initial development phase, having them networking and developing together their films. And then once they are connected, they can apply to our co-development fund and have our support. So this was basically, and for this, what we did, we were working together with training providers from all over Europe, according to specific areas that we were deciding every year. For example, long feature films, documentaries, animation, shorts. So it was very precise in terms of strategy. We succeeded after 5 years to bring together the professionals. So we said, okay, for the next year, also here, we want to work differently, and we want to focus on circular actions. And also here, we want to create a new connection with the players that can help to circulate and offer more visibility to the funded films from our co-development fund. And what we want to do, what we want to focus as a fund, is to create new organic connections. And also here, we will apply a similar model in order to connect producers with the exhibitors, local network of cinemas and art house cinemas from the 4 countries. We want to create a community. We want to create a REACT community and REACT level. We know that it's we really have the feeling that it's our responsibility as a film fund, in this case as a supranational film fund, to be much more involved in the distribution process from the very beginning. We don't want just to focus on funding the development and production, but we want really to make everything we can in order to bring closer the films that we do support with the audience, the different 4 audiences from the 4 countries. And that's why we are considering to implement, compared to the past, some distribution real funding in order to really help the films to circulate better, to have the chance to be seen, and to have the chance to create a sort of like awareness of the films that we do support. Basically, on a smaller scale, we want to do what basically we should probably also consider to do on a European scale. Really like to try to recreate a sort of branding. And as you were also mentioning before, I think that it's super relevant to start considering that film education, of course, it's a matter of like national funds. It's like part of the ministry and it's part of like the national ministry. But I think that if regional funds, as in our case, we want to do, would be much more focused on film education strategy, especially on a local level, we might bring back a generation of audiences that we completely lost in the past few years. And that could be also already somehow one of the solutions in order to bring the audience closer to our films. So in a way, we want to connect the films to the exhibitors. Another way, we want to connect the audience to our films. So basically, this is more or less the whole general plans that we are planning to have as a co-production market and has a film fund. It was a bit vague, I know, because it's a lot of things to say, but of course, I'm very happy to answer questions afterwards and to discuss also the plans for the future. So I don't know if, yeah.
Okay, thank you so much, Alessandro. So you can see we cannot talk about successful distribution and audiences without tackling all the value chain of the sectors. Is I think you have demonstrated. Miguel, I don't know if you want to make any comments at this point.
I would just like to say that I think that this really opens up a lot of possibilities, also in terms of how already in one structure alone we can have such a diversity of filmmaking practices, and how all of them can also give something to the other one, and how different platforms can be integrated. And I'm sure that these, along with the next participants' feedbacks, I'm sure that it will live up to a good conversation in the end. Should I give the word to Pedro Borges already, for representing Cinema Ideal?
No, actually, we're going to festivals and then the distribution. So I'll give the floor to Ruben, please.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, first of all, I would like to thank the invitation to Dr. Lisboa and Creative Europe Desk Media Portugal for organizing the meeting. What I've heard from Alessandro has been so interesting. I'm going to speak from the other extreme of the process because Alessandro has spoken about projects, and I think I will talk about the moment in which those finished documentaries are shown. And I hope that what I have in mind during these latest days and weeks and months I'm going to talk about, well, I might be also interesting to you. I would like to give my appreciation too for the Creative Europe desks, and particularly to Ainhoa Gonzalez from Creative Europe Desk Media Euskadi. My name is Rubén Corral, and I've been advisor to the programming team of Cinevi since 2014. And since last month, I'm the head of programming, quite new. Last week, we introduced our program for this year's edition of our festival. As Ainhoa said, Cinevi's International Festival of Documentary and Short Film of Bilbao. We are about to celebrate our 62nd edition next month. Ours is one of the most veteran film festivals in Spain, created in 1959. And luckily, we have been able to celebrate each edition year by year. And this year's will obviously be quite a different one because of the challenges that pandemic has put in front of us, and pandemic is putting in front of us. I can talk about my short experience dealing with documentary distributors and filmmakers, but obviously about the festival in which I have been collaborating for a few years. Concerning the topic of the panel, the European Documentary Marketplace, our festival, Cinevi, since its foundation, well, it was supposed to be something like a little brother of the International Film Festival of San Sebastian back then in 1959. And that's why they decided to focus on the kind of cinema that had no place under the bright lights, under the shining stars that used to go to San Sebastian those years. So short films and documentaries became our field, and now our clients are stars and our workspace. In 1974, our contest achieved full recognition by the FIAP as a festival of the highest international ranking, competitive in our three categories: fiction, animation, and documentary. And we still keep it, that recognition. In 1981, the festival was taken over by the Bilbao City Council, so we're mainly a public film festival owned by the city of Bilbao and supported by the Basque government and the Spanish Ministry of Culture. We have really solid support coming from public institutions, and we are really lucky for that. And obviously documentaries are one of the most important parts of our program. Short documentaries are included in our official selection, and feature-length documentaries during the last years have not taken part in a specific international competition, though this point could be changed in coming editions. Nevertheless, as we have a first feature film international competition called Thief, what we used to do is to include quite a lot of documentaries there. Naturally, that documentary has been directed by a new director, a newcomer. And this year, for instance, we have 4 documentaries out of 9 feature films. In order to include them in our program, we are in touch with distribution companies, for sure. But we also get in touch with producers and directors. In a way, we connect with them. And after screening their films, their documentaries, we could say that we try to collaborate on the distribution of that film, because we might be the gate of entrance of that film to the Spanish market of festivals, or to Spanish audiences, or even to Latin American market of festivals because of the languages, because we translate the films into Spanish and Basque. So in a way, we could say that we act like small-scale distributors. And this year, a fortiori, because this pandemic year, we will also screen some documentaries online, in our case via the online movie platform Filmin. So this year, we are supposed to spread the seed of documentaries and all the rest of the short and feature films included in our program to all the people in Spain, because they will be able to pay for an online ticket at Filmin and watch a documentary that in no other way they will be able to find, unless living in Bilbao, of course. But up to a limit, of course, because we have to keep in mind that, for instance, in the case of Filmin, their catalog includes thousands of films and series and other products. Even we will share the space for film festivals with other festivals that take place during the same days. So our distribution through Filmin, we know that it will not be easy. It will be surely as complicated as it is when we program offline in a traditional venue, in theaters or in cinema halls. Nevertheless, our first bet was and is on an offline festival, because we understand that film festivals should be meeting points for filmmakers, cinema industry members, and above all of them, the audience, the local audience. Cinevi, a film festival from Bilbao, must feel, and we feel it, that the audience agrees with the program, with the festival. And I think that that feeling that we notice while on the streets must be our main priority. So our priority was and is the offline festival, but as instability began to grow during the first part of the year, we thought that maybe an appropriate alternative or an appropriate safety net could be reducing the screenings. And that's something that we have been forced to do, but in exchange, we will offer to our audience the possibility of watching the films online, but always keeping in mind that where possible and circumstances permitting, we would keep the offline festival, the normal one. But if you've been reading the news these weeks or these latest hours, you know that it cannot be possible to have a normal festival right now living in Spain. So our festival this year will be different. Anyway, even though it's a big drama for Spanish society, we have to be happy to have this alternative. In any case, this year, as always, what we can offer in CINEVI to documentary producers and filmmakers is our experience and our attention. Because of their nature, because of their history, film festivals are supposed to belong to the exhibition part of the process for documentaries. But as we are not the last ones to screen the films, on the contrary, we're supposed to be the first ones. Festivals are one of the most important moments for the distribution of a film, and in this case for a documentary. But I understand that our effort may not be enough for filmmakers because they're working hard on developing their projects. And I know that it's huge and amazing long work, but obviously from our point of view, if you receive, for instance, 500 feature documentaries, just to say a number, it is absolutely impossible to satisfy expectations that might be created. Afterwards, sometimes you read about film, you get to know it because of a friend or a contact or from a festival, and you ask for that documentary to be watched, and afterwards you feel it doesn't fit in your program. And a part of our job is that it's not so nice. It's this part of our job. But we have to become filters. It's not a beautiful word, but I think that it describes quite accurately what we must do. You take 500 documentaries and you don't let pass, I don't know, in our case, 490. We are forced to do that. It's unavoidable. And on the other hand, nowadays, thanks to the widespread use of video and the cheapening of distribution expenses, we can have a better idea of the kind of documentaries being made around the world. But the other side of this reality is that most of the festivals get to know almost all the documentaries, or not all the documentaries, but better say the same documentaries. And it's a really important part of our job to differentiate from the festivals, particularly to the festivals that take place in your environment, in your category or in your social environment. And I know that this part of our work might not be always understood by filmmakers, but it's quite understandable that we cannot be repeating same films that have just been screened a few weeks ago in a Navy festival. And I would like to add one last thing, an important side of nowadays festivals' role, documentary production. I think there is still a long way to go in our festival, for instance, because we have had no particular tradition on organizing meetings like this, or even the Alessandro has just said, when East meets West meetings and pitching. But nevertheless, this year we will be hosting the third edition of CINEVI Networking, which is a professional forum focused on local producers and filmmakers. For the last 3 years, and thanks to the support of the Basque Producers Association, Basque Television ETV, Cine Euskadi, and Europa Creativa Media Desk Euskadi, we have had a chance to organize, maybe not a big meeting, but a place dedicated to promote the audiovisual Basque industry. and specifically in our case in Cinevi, the documentary production. To take part in that competition, producers must submit works in a state of advanced development or already in production. And this year, even though the cover entries has been shorter and difficulties filmmakers have gone through, well, we have received 31 projects and 8 of them have been selected because of their idea or feasibility or production possibilities. And they will have the chance to get an award of 10,000 euros. The projects they will be presented to the public this year in an online session that will be streamed. Later, there is a pitching session in front of the professionals who will be members of the jury. And among others, this year we have professionals on distribution like Catherine Leclef from Cat and Dogs or Lena Mera from Tree Line, but also representatives of the institutions that support this forum, like Ainhoa herself, for instance, from Europa Creativa Desk Media Euskadi. And also this year we will have with us Ove Richoy Jensen, Danish consultant and producer, or Mehdi Bekar from Al Jazeera documentary channel. Afterwards, personal, maybe not so personal this year, advisory meetings will be held between the producers and the participants. And the winner will receive that 10,000 euros award. Our aim is to help create and develop creative and independent documentary film projects in our environment, as well as to establish synergies between Basque and international production. That's what happened, particularly with the winner of our first Cinevi Networking Award a couple of years ago, a feature film Plateau by Juan Palacios, which was premiered at CPH Docs last year and received special mention from the jury. And well, I think that my time has finished, so just thanks for letting me say all these things, and we will meet again for questions.
Thank you so much, Ruben. I think I've been piling here a number of comments and questions for our Q&A, so very interesting, but it really seems like it's evident the increasingly importance of festivals in promoting and even in the distribution of films, and the way you are adjusting and spreading your activities. So there's something to continue in a Q&A session. Miguel, I don't know if you have something to add before we give the floor to Pedro.
No, I just completely agree that, yes, thank you so much, Ruben, for your intervention and for everything that you added up. Pedro, you can now go.
Well, just to give a quick overview of what we are doing, I mean, being distributor and exhibitor and having a small cinema in the center of Lisbon, it mixes up a bit everything. I mean, when you are releasing a film, you know that you will have at least one screen to show it, and that puts things quite differently. In the sense, anyway, I believe that as distributor, from many years ago, we always think about a film independently. If the film is a fiction or a documentary, not only because nowadays there are a lot of works that mix the borders between fiction and documentary, but also because I believe that most of the people that still watch the films that we release and that we show, they don't have in their mind these differences so much as that existed 10, 20, 30 years ago. So even if we are looking at mixing audiences and film profiles and all that, It's not really the question of being a documentary or a fiction, but it's a film that that we can show and that will attract a minimum of persons of admissions, and that it is important to release it. In this sense, I believe the only difference is that sometimes we choose films because of the importance they have, not specifically as a work of cinema, but also because it is related with life itself. I mean, when we release For Sama, we are not only releasing a film that we believe is a very powerful documentary, but also because it portrays a situation and a situation that everyone should be aware of. When we release some other documentaries, it is also related with the theme that they approach, that they portray, and not only because of being a work of cinema. I believe it's nowadays the thing that distinguishes work that must be done with documentaries. But documentaries have the same problem that that we have with the films, and choosing which films to distribute and which films to show. We live in a world of overproduction. Hundreds and hundreds of new films are being made every year. And I mean, you can release a film every week. In a small country, at least you can release an interesting film every week, or 2 different films every week. You cannot release 10 or 20 or 30 films every year. That is the quantity, and the big picture is to be shown in festivals. Nevertheless, as a cinema, we also have a collaboration. We cooperate with many festivals that take part that happen in Lisbon, because Lisbon is not a city of cinemas, it's a city of festivals. There are 2 independent cinemas in Lisbon, and each of them is a single screen cinema. So we cooperate with festivals and with Doc Lisboa. Besides hosting the festival during 2 weeks, I mean, this year it's a different thing, but usually it has been for the past 6 years. We have been hosting the festival for 2 weeks, and in October, and then in the first semester of the following year, we showed together a selection of 6 films. That is shown for a week, 1 week per month, and so between January and June, we show a selection of films that have been shown in Doc Lisboa, and afterwards they have a small release. So that is already a second choice, also from the part of the festival. I don't know what else I could tell you that wouldn't bother you too much, so I will wait for questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Pedro. It really is something that I think that will help to the final conversation, is really to see like how different agents play to it, because it's all of us act in a local scene in a way, like we are set somewhere, but there's always different crossings to the rest of Europe, the rest of the world, and how this affects and transforms each of our projects. I think that will be something that we will also have to deal with in the final conversation. So thank you very much, Pedro. Susanna, do you want to add something?
That's the perfect cue for Salma to start her presentation. Thank you, Miguel. Salma, the floor is yours. Thank you.
So thanks for inviting me, and I'm trying to open my desk here so you can take a look at my presentation. So it's a short one, but then we have a bit of an overview. Does it work?
Yes, it
okay,
does.
Thank you. So basically, I have concentrated a little bit on the changes we have experience within the last now nearly a year, and it was also interesting to hear for Sama, because that was one of the first films that really suffered of the lockdown, as we had huge release in France and certain territories in October, but most territories were waiting for the Academy run and had a good buzz, and they released beginning of March, and we had like huge rollouts on 25 copies or more in Japan and Germany and different territories, and then after a week after, it had to leave. And this is one of the films where, as it was already mentioned, the whole setup is important. You know, you need Q&As, you need NGOs, people talking about this film. So it's more than just a classic theatrical release. So I think that's one of the issues with specifically with these documentaries, that it's they can work in the cinemas, but they usually come with a bit of a more ambitious setup with experts on panels and a lot of, you know, student screenings and so on. So there's a lot of interactivity with documentaries. Well, so let's see if we can go to the second page. Well, so just shortly, these are all the different platforms we're working with when we release a film in different territories, and every single platform you can see here is affected by COVID. Some are working even better now, but all needs to be discussed and negotiated again, which is totally new for us. I mean, of course, I mean, this industry is very dynamic, but you had certain routes, you where to go, you know, you release a film at certain festivals, you understand the market a little bit, and everything was, you know, needed to be discussed again. So it was at the beginning, the first 3 months had been extremely intense, because you needed to discuss every single festival selection with the team again. So let's start with festivals. So at the beginning, they were cancelled, or they were quickly transformed into digital versions, as CPH Docs was the first one. And now it seems like, as already mentioned here as well, I mean, it's depending on the lockdown situation. You have actual festivals. They're trying to, you know, have screenings again with a smaller capacity and offering a platform screening at the same time. We are always limiting the views, because at the end of the day is that the digital versions of festivals are colliding with VOD rights. So that means if the film is exposed to more than thousands of viewers at a festival screening digitally, we're talking about digital rights, and then we have to see if this is an issue with pay TV. And the first 6 months, you know, everyone in this industry was showing an enormous flexibility. But at a certain moment, you know, everyone was again trying to defend their space. And now we really have to get all the players territorial-wise on board, and also ask distributors, because the theatrical market is still there, and they're still buying and they're still releasing, despite the very challenging environment. So what we need to do is like to ask the potential distributors, like, if this festival takes the film to 500,000, 3,000 viewers, is this an issue for you as a distributor? Do you still think that you can release the film in 2021? You know, there's so many wake moments in distribution nowadays. So what we're doing is like a massive amount of communication. So it's like everything needs to be reconfirmed with distributors, with broadcasters, and so on. I mean, basically, we're very thankful that festivals keep doing their job, and I'm sure it's super difficult for them as well. What we do feel is that it's hard to create a buzz at festivals, as we used to, you know, meet the industry, meet the audience, and, you know, talk through let the film grow and blooming. So this is definitely not possible in a digital version, but at least it finds its way to an audience. It's getting, you know, the kind of the quality stamp of a festival. There's a chance to get awards, of course. So, I mean, at least this kind of festival work is still there and working pretty well for us. Where we see a bigger issue, of course, is, I mean, this is and from a technical side, it's also changing partly, but it's not easy. Is usually a film travels to different festivals in a territory. And of course, if there's a festival in one country, in one city, and it's available all over Spain or Portugal, for example, then it's hard to argue with another festival that they can have a second screening. But usually films are traveling from one festival to the other, from one city to another city in one territory. So this is definitely an issue. What we get as a feedback from festivals so far is that they were happy that they were able to reach new audiences that are usually not typical festival goers. So that's definitely a great chance as well. Yeah, the cinematic releases, I mean, this changes every second, more or less. There had been a few European films that had I would really say that they had a good time in the cinemas, but it had been mostly local films, art house or documentary films, as they had less competition from the US market. But distributors had an extremely tough time. They couldn't plan anything. They were always depending on the delays of the bigger US releases. So there was so much uncertainties in theatrical distribution. What we felt is that some distributors who are pretty strong in their territory, they were still releasing film limited and then working with their own platforms or having good deals with other SVOD platforms. So they're using the release more as a marketing tool for a few screenings together with festivals or just in selected cinemas, and then release it digitally. That worked pretty well for some of our documentaries. What we also, I mean, what we have noticed is, of course, that films that work on both platforms are doing best. For example, we have released Caught in the Net at CPH Docs, which is a film on child abuse on the internet. So it would have been like a great, I mean, first of all, it made over 500,000 sold tickets in Czech Republic. So that was the local release. That was just before the lockdown. Then they re-released after the lockdown again and made another, I think 100,000 even. So they stopped at 350 and then it's at 500, but they had different versions, also educational versions. So what happened with this title is that a lot of distributors, also because during COVID, of course, all the kids got digitalized heavily. And so this film was definitely a film that got picked up by distributors after the lockdown, but they wanted to release now, and then we are facing another, soft lockdown. So they were postponing to next year. And of course, all the parties are showing the maximum of flexibility here. And, we're not asking to release earlier or something like that. But also for this film, everyone knows, you can also create a buzz digitally. It speaks about the phenomenon that's right now. So these are kind of films that's still working, where you can play around a little bit with the platforms. You don't necessarily need the theaters, but it would be great. I mean, you can do perfect school screenings and so on. What we're a little bit afraid of course, is that a lot of films are held back for 2021. So that means for documentaries, it will be extremely competitive next year. If we even have a normal environment next year, which we don't know at the moment. And then, so I have to turn off my, sorry. I'm getting a lot of messages, which I'm still on, so it's gone. And another option, which is not established now, but might be an interesting new distribution option, is the e-cinema, which means that platforms are working together with the cinemas. Some European countries, or also in the US, it's establishing or offering like slots as you would go to the cinema. That means you go to the cinema and the film is released theatrically for 2 weeks only, and then it can be seen at the platform of your local or favorite cinema. So you're still, you still keep your connection with the cinema. So it's not a platform like Netflix, which works independently from the theaters, but it's a platform that's established from your cinema. Usually it's like a pan-organized platform from art house cinemas. And then they are also discussing, because that's relevant as well, if you buy the film digitally on the cinema platform from the cinema, if it still counts as box office. So as a ticket sales, more or less. And that's an interesting option as a new model. If it works, if all the funders and so on will be on board, if the cinemas are open to do this, it's still in discussion. But that's something we hear more and more. When it comes to TV, so TV is buying as always. I would even say like buying a little bit more as they have strong ratings. Of course, it had been a very slow process at the beginning because they didn't know which films will be done in time and which films will be delayed. So that was a bit, a difficult moment for them as well, what they need to buy and how many hours. But basically, I mean, people are watching TV, so that's out of question. And what we felt is that the core, the essence of documentary, of course, are political films, hard-hitting films, provocative films. The first months, a lot of buyers were rather looking for the lighter side of our slate, and partly relicensing films on history or sports docs, because they felt, they usually, especially in free TV, you show so much, heavy news on COVID, and they can't, provoke too much with their films. But this is something that had changed a little bit. So we feel that our more political, social, human interest films are selling again and finding audience internationally. So that's going a little bit back to normal. Pay TV, there was some kind of feedback. I mean, of course, it's also depending on the territory. I mean, we have partners like in Latin America where COVID is still very hard hitting, where they're very careful in buying films because they really don't know about the budget situations. Basically, the pay TV is still buying, also, for the same fees in our experience. But what they definitely are a little bit more, cautious in what they buy because they are losing advertising budget. That's a situation which is also, it's also depending on whether we are going into an economic recession or not, which is, out of our hands at the moment. And the VOD market. So, I mean, of course, TVOD is growing, but again, I mean, if the film doesn't get proper marketing, it's hard to release the film on digitally, especially when it comes to like electronics sales through or transactional VOD as you have on iTunes. So the films that were released in the cinemas already were selling best. But if you release a film on iTunes only, you need to think about how you can, get the attention, create attention. So it's not enough just to put a film online, which I guess is already common knowledge. And when it comes to the streamers, there was this notion within our industry, like everyone was saying, okay, they will just buy everything now because they don't have enough content. This didn't 100% prove right. So what we feel, I mean, this is only small point of view from a documentary sales agent like us, is that they're buying a little bit more on the territorial side for certain territories. But when it comes to this like original titles where, the market is, the market is looking for, the big deals, they're still, very selective, and they have a lot of productions going on, and they have, corporations with production offices all over the world. So it doesn't necessarily mean that they're just buying tons of content of completed films. They're still able to produce what they exactly want themselves. And yeah, the markets. So we've lost our most important platform, the most efficient ones, and the ones where we meet and let projects grow. I think when it comes to meeting new projects, it works pretty good. That means, you know, they set up this one-on-one meetings, presentations. So we've been everywhere from CPH talks to, yeah, just all different markets, Sheffield and so on. And we met a lot of producers, but what we're missing like crazy is like some kind of a spontaneity, and also the idea of, you know, creating a momentum for a film. You know, you meet the filmmakers, a project, and then you talk with different broadcasters, you talk with financiers, and we bring them all together, and you make, you know, you start to finance a project and to create ideas of how to, you know, market it and so on. So this is definitely not possible. So it works very well on a one-to-one basis. What doesn't work is like the group meeting and the exchange of information. And we hope that this part of our work and of our workflow of our industry will come back very soon, because it's really needed. Of course, I mean, the whole distribution circuit that works pretty. I mean, we're still selling, we're still connecting filmmakers with buyers and so on. But this is all, more or less all between people we know already. And we are all relying on the contacts and relationships we had and we nourished for more than a decade. So I think the big issue is if this goes on like this online, new filmmakers, newcomers have a really hard time. And also films that are more like art house that need, you know, the attention of the theaters and so on. So this is the challenge for the next year. For our side, we as a sales agent, we just adapted very quickly. We're taking more, let's say, noisy films, clear pitch from established filmmakers. That's still working really well. But of course, we're very much looking forward to be more risky again. Well done. I think it's time for Q&A.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much, Salma. We would start with Q&A, but before that, we still have a few minutes, and I would like to ask Miguel about what is your experience with the Doc Lisboa regarding all these constraints with the COVID? And I mean, I know that you divided more or less the festival into online activities and you know, still screenings, and with the Cinematographic and Pedro Borges also. But you know, all this difference in the relationship between you know, the festivals and the other actors in the industry that help create that buzz, that memento that Salma was talking about towards the films. How do you deal with it?
Well, it's definitely a challenge. It's definitely a challenge also from the very beginning, when we were thinking and redesigning the whole festival and thinking of all the challenges ahead, like back in March or April, when we started thinking that the festival as we knew it most probably couldn't happen in October. So we started redesigning this whole model and idea for Doc Lisboa. And the truth is that the first decision that we made were two. The first two decisions that we made. One was that we would really like to try to defend as much as possible the idea of screening the films in the theater, on one hand, and the second one was that we wouldn't be able to compromise with bringing so many people as we used to bring to Lisbon. So I will pick more on the second part, like for the conversation that we are having. When we realized that we couldn't bring the people to Lisbon, what we thought was that this was then going to be a year to try to bring in as a diversity of actors into Doc Lisboa and into the activities that was never possible before. And this is something that I think that it's that will be also a very important reflection that will be needed to that we will all have to do after this year, which is in a way a reflection year for everyone, because the truth is that I personally think that personal encounters are very important, and there are many things that we are losing with all these digital ways of meeting and encountering, and there are things that are very like there's a soul of the meeting that is lacking in these forms of being together. But the truth is that before there was a lack of diversity many times, and if we think of like economical backgrounds, territories, I mean, it's total. If we are thinking of Europe, we can more or less easily circulate, but even just thinking of Europe, Central Europe has much easier ways of circulating between Central European countries than, for example, Portugal or Eastern Europe or Southern Europe and the North and Northern Europe. You know, like this kind of concentrates some people and some ideas, and and digitally, it's very simple, you know, to bring everyone on board. But now we also have to think if we are really debunking in a way these clusters of power, you know, like if this is possible through digital media. I'm not sure if this is possible. Also, because even in these ways, we still have different players, different visibility, you know, like I don't know, but I think that in a way we have to think also if these digital tools will allow us in any way to try to create more accessible forms of accessing information, of accessing films, of accessing information. And so I think this is one of the challenges that we will really keep for what's to come. But this also comes in an idea that we have been bringing from before, which is the division in a way in 3 different levels of circulation of films, and I would say that those levels are the local level, like Lisbon, the national level, the whole Portugal, and the international level. For the international level, of course, we created Nebulae. And what we see as our role in this international level is not so much as showing the films, as screening the films, but much more as a jump, you know, like as an idea of people gathering here to then possibly finding the films that will allow them to circulate. And then on the national level, it's really with partnerships that because what we think is that each one of us knows better their context. So the best thing that we as Doc Lisboa can do, both for the films that we are showing and for the projects in development that are being presented here, is really to bring those people that we think that will have the profile and the sensibility to know how to best take care of them in their own contexts, more than we going there to screen them, these films and projects there. And I also think that this is something that we have to deal now with the digital and the online festivals, for example, because I think that sometimes, like this idea of the online giving more accessibility and democratizing in a way the access, because now the word democratization of access has been used a lot, but I also think of who has the access if this availability that is being done is not being brought by someone or by some entity that knows well the local context in which these films are being shown. And so, yes, I think that we are going through a big times of transformation. And I think maybe I used the word like to go a bit further than what you asked me. But I think that this really poses us a lot of new tools and things that definitely will bring us very good and important things that we will have to know how to integrate for the post-pandemic world. But I think that we also should be aware not to overlap and destroy things that were important in the ways that things were working on the pre-pandemic world, if we can divide the world and the time according to those criteria. Do you want to start by making a question, or should I start? I just wanted to say one thing more, sorry. I just wanted to invite, because since I think that we will now pass for the Q&A, I just wanted to invite everyone that is in the room to do participate. The idea for this state of the art is really to have an open conversation more than just more than the ones that we invited to talk, is really like to create a bridge for an open conversation. So if anyone participating in this talk has something to say, you can just like raise your hand with something that you can do here in the reactions, or just write on the chat that you have a question or your question, and Susanna and I will give you the word. Do you want me to do the first question, or you do it, Susanna?
Well, just waiting a few seconds to see if anyone comes up from the room, comes up with the question before starting. But it doesn't seem like, I cannot see if anyone is actually writing. But anyway, no, I was just wanted to say that it's something that really troubles me. That we said before that festivals were increasingly more important, and then in playing this. Promoting this relationship with the different actors and of the different players of the value chain, and suddenly we have the pandemic, and as Salma said, it's much more difficult for newcomers. We adjust, we adapt, we're doing this and that, but it's one thing that worries me is it's getting more difficult for newcomers. Either sales agents, distributors will risk less, and on the other hand, in these events and markets and festivals where some spontaneity and more risk would appear, and also the role of the festivals themselves to play in this situation is a kind of dissolving with this constraint. So I don't know how you would think of tackling this the situations as we move forward. I mean, we cannot continue to keep on pushing for the well-established players in the market. So this is really something that worries me. But we have one question here in the room, and is Hazam Dimitas. I don't know don't you want to maybe speak out loud? We would love to hear you.
Yeah, for sure.
Please.
Thank you. I am a filmmaker from Eastern Turkey, and I am representing the documentary called Life Behind the Borders. And right now we are looking for production grants to start the movie. The movie is about borders, and the characters are very interesting. One of them is a painter, and he has to smuggle. He's a smuggler, and he has to smuggling to be able to earn money. And it's a dangerous border, but they are carrying alcohol from Iraq to Iran. This is the story of the movie. It's a documentary. And the second character was a actor for well-known film from Bahman Gobadi, and he's still smuggler. And that movie, the Bahman Gobadi's movie, Drunken Horses, was in Cannes Film Festival, but his actor is still struggling from life in here in Middle East. And the last character is a boxer. He's a sportsman, and because of the financial problem, he has to be a smuggler as well. So this is our movie, and we are looking for, you know, grants for production to be able to start the movie.
Well, I'm not. Miguel, would you no?
Thank you for sharing. I'm not sure if anyone here can help you with that, but thank you for sharing, and I'm sure that also, like, after this meeting there is a possibility to schedule meetings and enjoying, like, through Eventival and B Square and all these activities that are taking place in Nebula. Do we have any other question or commentary from the audience that we have here?
No.
Because if not, I can I can make a question. My question would be, I think I could pose a question for the four of you, like not to anyone in particular, but that I think that each one of you can bring different ideas, because we have been talking about this thing of the benefits of the digital world. What are the challenges? Each one of you brought this issue in a very heat of the moment way. But first, before I bring this question, we received a question from Julia Gamarra Inostrosa. Are you there? Do you want to make your question? Yes.
Hi, hello. Well, here we are in the morning, so I have a lot of sun, right? Well, I am from Peru. I'm just dealing with the rights of a documentary film, The Song of the Butterflies. It just had his world premiere at Hot Dogs, but I just got the deal because the director was pregnant, and so she had to spend a lot of time stopping the work of the film, of the distribution. And I was wondering about the movies getting old on this special time, on this pandemic time. And how is your appreciation about this? Because I am kind of worried. I'm designing the festival route, but I'm quite worried because part of the season we just lost part of the season because of this time, these special and difficult times we're working on. So I was wondering, what are your perspectives about movies getting old in this time? I'm not pretty sure if I'm expressing myself very clearly.
Yes.
But because Hot Dogs has been held on May, my movie is soon to get 1 year old. So what do you think about this?
It's a very poignant question, and I think that this is also a question that we could hear different agents like festivals, sales agents, and cinemas. Ruben, could I invite you to start, like, how you see this issue of the time of the films, like the year of the films, in this different situation that we are living?
Yes, I think that it's a very common question for us. Cinevi is a festival that takes place always in the end of the year. So for us, it's quite simple to think of films produced during the same year. That's what we usually do, although there are always exceptions, because in our rules, it's written that we can choose films produced during the year or the previous year. This year, this pandemic year, I think it's going to be really different, because we are presuming that next year there will not be a big level of production. So I think that thing that we have written since the beginning of the festival will have more importance in the next year. So even though that film, The Song of the Butterflies, has been already screened in Hot Dogs Festival, I think that in our case in Europe, it would be well received, and we would watch it even for the next edition of Cinevi in 2021. So I think that evidently it would be a problem, but not in the case of particular festivals like ours. I don't know. I can talk in the name of my festival, but not others.
Of course, Salma, from the point of view of sales, how do you see this issue?
Yeah, just one question. So did you push other festivals or not? Did you decide to hold it back in the meantime?
Well, we are selected for Guadalajara Film Festival since the movie was in the first cut program last year, and we've just been confirmed about a film festival that will be held on March because they moved the dates. And so I'm trying to work on the strategy, and we are kind of deciding things and changing our priorities because we would love a very good European premiere, but we are thinking about this. How long should we wait, or how should we work it? I just applied to a festival that had a deadline last week, but well, we're kind of trying to look the best way to work with this.
Well, I mean, in our experiences, of course, I mean, as Ruben was saying, like a lot of festivals are a little bit more flexible, but at the end of the day, you have a date on your film. So the moment you have a production date, it feels dated, I mean, in 2021. So you cannot hold back for too long. I mean, it's different if you haven't released the film at all and you didn't present it to anyone, then it's not a problem. But then you also have to think about the timing, of course. But basically, if you have already a production date, then I would really fight for a strong festival selection. And yeah, I mean, we made the experience that we kind of changed our strategy, partly because especially when you're waiting for A festivals, some of the A festivals cannot take as many films in competition as usually. Or if, for example, if you take Venice, I mean, it's not about competition, but they were canceling some strands because they don't have enough capacity in the cinema. So it's really like, it's a technical issue. So that means that we are also open to premiere films at festivals that are, strong territorial wise, or show some special engagement, or, have Q&As, or are focused on a certain theme, or like more human rights festivals. Or we have one film traveling very well now at architecture festivals. So we're a little bit more flexible with the festivals and not necessarily wait for the films that had been already, completed to hold back for another year. Of course, we're also holding back a few films, but those films haven't been shown to anyone yet.
Yeah, from the theatrical release point of view, Pedro, do you want to comment on this aspect of the date of the film? Because sometimes theatrical releases have different criteria than festivals, who many times are much stricter regarding the year of production, and theatrical release usually have wider views on this. And how do you think that this pandemic and stopping of the circulation can affect or expand more the dates that the film can have prior to the distribution?
Well, I mean, distributors are more flexible. If they just look at the film and think about, where and when they can release it, what is the perfect time, and when they have also time to, invest into marketing. So that's possible. But that's, I mean, when we're talking about documentaries, you have to think you really have to think through the marketing strategy for the film and see if there's a real theatrical potential for the movie. So that needs to be discussed with distribution partners, and maybe, release it in certain territories. And it doesn't always mean that you get a theatrical distribution partner in each territory, but probably in selected ones where your film fits perfectly. Yeah, but I mean, it's true that they're more flexible, but still, I mean, I do think that I mean, Ruben was saying that there won't be a lot of films to be released because, you know, of delay in production. On the other side, I do think a lot of strong art house films will come out next year. And they will compete with documentaries, of course. It's not necessarily James Bond that it's competing, but it's art house movies, the narratives.
You want to add something to this, Pedro? You have no sound.
No, I have sound. I mean, I don't believe with some films you can speak about should they be released within 6 months or should they be released within 1 year after a major festival or after a festival in your own country? I don't think that is so much important nowadays. And I mean, some films are being delayed. I mean, for instance, we have 7 documentaries at the moment that we could release, and they are being delayed, as other films are. But also the question was, films have stopped being produced, so fiction or documentary, there will be in the future all in time, what is available and when it should be shown or not. I don't think it's our biggest preoccupation at the moment. I mean, cinemas are being closed in Italy or in Spain and France. They cannot they cannot have the screenings after 5 or 6 o'clock in the afternoon. So our immediate preoccupation, and I think it's going to last at least for another 6 months, is are we going to survive or not? Not really. I mean, in some countries, I know that national films are performing. We have for 5 days now a Portuguese film, small independent modest Thursday, and it came out first film in the box office because there are no American major films being released, and suddenly with 10,000 admissions, the Portuguese film is the first place box office. I mean, I'm sure that young or old, none of us has ever lived a situation like this one, and we must be open to change our decisions every morning.
Okay.
Do you want to go, Susanna? You were going to say something? Nope. Okay. Thank you, Pedro. If anyone has any other question, you can write on the chat.
Maybe Alessandro wants to add something to the conversation?
Well, I'm not really taking part in the, as I was saying before, in the distribution, let's say, side of the films, but honestly, I had similar discussions with other filmmakers, for example, from exactly from Chile and from Latin America today. And they were discussing whether to hold their films, but they were deciding whether to hold the premiere of the film. So just like to postpone the premiere. And this is like also another big question, also because it's about debut features, and it's a problem that also Samba was saying about like the less room for maybe newcomers. In this case, from my perspective, being like thinking with the logic of the market this year, we would be very flexible in every choice from our side. So I'm not sure how the market itself would be flexible in the next months. So, and also, Julia, I don't know if you're still there, but I was also wondering, I don't know if you mentioned it before, I don't know if you have a sales or that if you're in negotiation with any sales, and if you have a strategy also for the other type of windows. So I don't know if what are your plans? So I would consider also the other plans in terms of, let's say, more overall strategy in terms of distribution, not only the festival premiere, but really like considering what are the opportunities. Then, of course, I think that Salma and Ruben and Pedro knows much better what are the complications in terms of like date and expiry date for films and presenting films in festivals. So, but I don't know if for the next months, I think like anything could be possible.
Yeah, Alessandro, but I think that I would like to ask you, and transposing this question into another one, which is something that will probably be changing, because right now, if there's a problem in the circulation of films, we are seeing an interesting moment for the circulation of films in development, and many projects are using this kind of different ways of communicating films in development, films in writing stage, films in production stage. So, and you have many, and you are very well representing many of these spaces. So I also think that not just starting with you, but then moving into all of the others, like of how you see the moment in which you feel like it's important for a film to start its circulation, its international presence, and it's showing to the world, and also depending on your different action in the field, when do you pay most attention to it? Like when are you most interesting? In what stage are you the most interesting in getting to know about a new project?
Should I start myself? Well, obviously, being always totally connected to the development phase, for me, the best moment to discover a film and discover possible talent is in the development phase. Possibly like having like a first contact in a sort of like advanced development phase where the project has already a clear, let's say, package, has a strong package, and where I think that the strategy, the co-production strategy is clear. So for me, and especially for us at Venice Mid-Size, the most important thing is not only the potential quality of the film itself, but it's how we can possibly help the project to find the right partners. And so this is, for us, is the right moment where we can know where we can really play a role. Then also for us this year, it's going to be very problematic because I'm in touch with many, especially speaking about documentaries. We are in touch with many filmmakers that we have set up these scouting days in order to be in touch with the people that we didn't meet along the year. And so we are meeting a lot of people, unfortunately, virtually. But another problem is that, for example, we are requesting as a mandatory thing for documentaries to have a teaser. And some projects, they didn't have the chance to shoot anything this in the past months. And so, of course, this is exactly the example where we will play some flexibility, where we will know that maybe this year is going to be different. Maybe this year it will be, the approach towards the selection will be slightly different. But, and I think that this is the case where somehow we have to find ways to combine what I was saying before with the business angels that might really help to develop further this strategy for the future months. So this is why we think that we want to find and meet projects and talents in a phase where they're really strongly need to understand what could be the next steps for them.
Okay.
Yes, I do agree with what Alessandra has said. We prefer to find a new project in a development phase, particularly in our case regarding first feature films or documentaries, feature documentaries. But normally in the case of the short films, what we usually do is just to open the call for entries and receive the entries and watch the short films. But regarding the other question about flexibility, I think that in the next year and next month, we're going to have to be more flexible. Otherwise, there will be a lot of good films that we will just lose because of the date at the end of the credits. So I'm optimistic in that sense, and I think that all the films that are currently during the development phase will have the chance after the pandemic, or after a softening of the pandemic effects, to be good documentaries, and that's the point of project that we prefer. Obviously, that's the case for first feature films in our case, but we also have a panorama section focused on masters of cinema, or in that case, that's not so important. But yes, the development phase, I would answer definitely.
Actually, yes, Miguel. No, just to continue on this point. Actually, this was one of the main questions that I had here for Salma and for Pedro. Is what would be the right moment to come to you for you to take upon someone's film? Would you rather have an early stage script with the producer statement, more or less? Financing more or less structured, or would you rather have knowledge at later stage or a later editing? Salma, maybe?
Yeah. Okay, I start. Well, I mean, it's depending on the situation. I mean, if you want to spoil us, then you just send a rough cut. So that's the easiest way to get an idea of the project. But I know that some filmmakers need support in terms of pre-sales financing, and then we're happy to get on board a little bit earlier. But what we need is some kind of footage. We need to get an understanding of the main character, develop treatment. So this is the minimum of tools we need to see to have judgment. Another thing is that we can't take too many films for financing. So it's never more than 3 in total, because it's extremely time intense. What we sometimes do is that we step in early with a letter of interest or commitment, so that helps for some funders. And we're also supporting a little bit all along the way of financing, and then we take the decision together when the film is finished. Most essential is that we are on board before the world premiere.
Pedro, would you like to?
I can't say much besides that. I believe there is a function for each of us. I pretty much defend the role of distributors in each country to deal with the cinema. I don't think films can go directly from directors or producers to the public. And I believe that before distributors, there are sales agents, and they have a job, a proper job, and that is to be the middle, not middleman nor middle wife, but they are in the middle. They will select and they will evaluate, and they will show us, and then they show to the festivals, and that's the way things work.
Pedro, I'm sorry. We're having a lot of trouble hearing you. It's a lot of distortion on the communication. No, maybe.
I cannot improve it very much because I'm at my place, not at the office, and the internet provider here is not very friendly with me. I don't know if you heard.
Better now. Thank you. Thank you.
I was just making a compliment to the sales agent, so I'm finished.
Okay. Okay, thank you so much, Pedro. Miguel, would you like to add something?
Sorry,
mic?
I was not finding the mic. Sorry, I'm not clicking right. No, I agree. I agree with this idea of the different agents. I would like to ask if there are any other questions from our dear audience now that we are reaching the end. Also, don't be shy. And if there are not different and other questions, I would like to ask you all a sort of a pre-pandemic question, but that I think that will for sure continue to have consequences, and also now that these kind of places are changing, which is the difference between big markets and more like local markets, local festivals, and the kind of possibility and the kind, from your point of view, like and for the mainly producers that can be seeing us, young producers, young filmmakers, how do you think that these two-level fields can play and add up to their films? Because there's also, and also how do you see from for example Salma as a sales agent or Ruben as a film programmer, like how do you look at these more local contexts of film festivals to look for films? Like, do you think that you can find things there? Like, how do you in your work practice look at these other places for filmmakers? This is a question for filmmakers that might be looking for the beginning of the distribution in their own countries or territories. What do you think that are their possibilities there? Do you want to start, Salma or Ruben?
Yeah, well, it's quite different in our case, as we are very well known and we're very well settled in the city. Bilbao International Film Festival of documentary and short film. Well, we can receive filmmakers and producers just to talk about their next projects. So this year we have this Nebulae Network, the 3rd edition, and there is another chance and another extra chance, not only to help them just advising and knowing their projects, but also with an award. But it's absolutely different the way we deal with local projects and international projects, as because as I have said, we used to talk to the distribution companies, and we used to go to film festivals around the world in that time, and we could travel to festivals just to meet new filmmakers and producers, and to get the link, to get to get to know these new films. It's quite different. It's like when you're in the case of the Basque Country, you receive that proposals. It's like everybody is trying to know what you think about their project, and in the other case, in the international market, you have to work to get the films. That's the main difference I see.
Thank you, Salma.
Well, I mean, it's hard to say. We need them both somehow. And of course, a market as Cannes or EFM Berlinale, these are beasts, and we're stressed. And even though we're like 3-4 people there, it's like you have meetings every 30 minutes for 5 to 6 days. So basically, the more local markets are, you have more value in your meetings. It's more intense. You can build up relationships with probably less experienced filmmakers. And, when it comes to documentary filmmakers, it's a lot about trust. There is, I mean, if you tell you follow someone for already for 3 years, you're going to follow for another 5 years. I mean, the development or the eye of the directors, there is so much the vision of the filmmakers. So this is something that can build up probably at smaller markets better. When it comes to sales, of course, the smaller markets don't offer the range of buyers or commissioning editors that a big market can offer you, because it's always, you invite selected ones. But still, I mean, also they are probably more charmed by certain projects at a small market where they have more time to give attention. But it's hard to say, I think one needs the other. It's a system that we have worked in for many years, and it's hard to judge them.
Yeah, but for example, do you see I mean, for example, there's sometimes like an overwhelm, especially for some projects in development, like the kind of overwhelm amount of projects that you can find in big markets compared sometimes to very like more specifically curated with the context that you can find from certain territories, and that can bring. Do you feel like this kind of places can bring something? And also, Alessandro, maybe you can comment on the work that you have been doing locally and the partnerships that you do internationally, and how to push forward some projects that not so many times have a chance.
Well, let's say that then it depends because, of course, I think that there is need for both big markets and smaller markets, medium-sized markets. And I think that in the online world, the more you have a precise identity in terms of editorial line, the easier is also to attract the interest of decision makers to participate in the event. But as you were saying before, like pre-pandemic situation, I think that, of course, the idea is that in big markets, you have everyone. So, of course, if you know how to play in that game and you know the rules of the game, it's, of course, you have the possibility to get in touch with everybody. I think that for newcomers, having the possibility to attend smaller markets it really means having access to decision makers. As Salma was saying, it's like the quality of the meetings, it's the quality of the talks, it's the quality of the human exchanges that you're going to create. And I think that not only for the projects that are selected, but in general for the people, the registered participants attending that market. And I think that the most challenging thing for us as markets now is not what we can offer to our selected participants, because we know that we will work hard for them as we did in the past, and we will really even do something more in order to curate the meetings and to provide some specific, let's say, consultancies. The biggest issue is really how to provide the same quality of the participation to all the registered participants that attend a market. And I think that this is like what we lost in every co-production market so far, like how the whole world moving around co-production markets of professionals, registered professionals, filmmakers, young emerging producers, just like coming to our event and having the chance to meet everybody. That is something that we have to work a lot now, and this is like the most challenging thing that we will do. How to really also offer them the chance to really find the right decision makers to talk to, how to connect them. This is like the biggest, I think that this is the biggest issue, because as Salma said before, still it's very possible to do very, very good meetings with projects, to scout great stories, to talk to great filmmakers in the selection. Outside the selection, it all becomes very blurred now.
Thank you so much, Alessandro. Thank you so much. I think we have a question from Esther.
Yeah, I have a more, well, first I would like to comment on this lack of informal meetings. Even me in my job, and I think all of us in our jobs, I miss it so much. I feel that I have no information at all, because really the most information I get is from bumping into somebody while having a coffee or running from one stand to another. It's such a change in how finally how the industry works, that is very painful, and I really hope we can go back there as soon as possible. But my question is more audience oriented, I would say. It was mentioned that theatrical releases especially festival screenings work as a marketing tool, as a promotion tool for films. So with this breaking away, what does it mean for the promotion of a film? How can the film, what other ways do we have to find, or can be found, or are already found to get the film to the audience? And also what kind of audience is it? Because certainly it's probably different people watching a trailer on YouTube than browsing through the catalog in a cinema and deciding on which film to go. Salma, do you have a...
Okay, I wasn't sure who is the one to answer. It's a very good question, and I have to say, I mean, in our case, we really became more commercial in our selection, because we don't have an answer.
It's a difficult one now.
Sorry for that. I mean, of course, you can work with, social media strategies, and but what you got at festivals, sorry, the buzz, the reviews, ambassadors, the idea of having a film in a cinema it's simply different. You can work with different formats, with a different pace, with different visual language that is not as easy as we thought to transfer to the digital world. Because you're competing at home, you're competing with your family, with I don't know, whatever work you have to do at home, and your distraction level of distraction is different.
Thank you, Sarma. I was afraid it was a difficult question.
Anyone else would like to add something? You pose very difficult questions, Esther.
Sorry.
Okay, so we are nearly at the end of our conference. I don't know, Miguel, if you would like to say something before we go. Do you still have anything else to ask?
Yeah, it was not a question. It was more like a thank you, because we are reaching the end of our time. But I wanted to say that I really think that the diversity of views, backgrounds, and activities that we joined here really added to more than a solving of a situation, more like a complexifying and a transparency towards a problem that we all are tackling and having ideas and thinking together is very important. So I wanted to thank you all for joining and bringing your thoughts into this Zoom meeting. It was very, very good for all of us, I'm sure. Thank you.
Yes, my words too. Thank you so much to our speakers, to our guests, and to everyone who is participating. We're still dealing here with this technological, dealing with the chat and with the conversations. Is still a bit working on it. By the end of the year, it will be better. But thank you so much. It was a pleasure to have you. And if anything, your contacts are on our website. On the Doc Lisboa website has the contacts for the speakers and for my colleagues also. So don't be shy and stay safe. Thank you so much.